At the height of its power, the Roman Empire seemed unstoppable. Its legions marched across continents like an iron tide. Kingdoms fell, cities burned, and entire cultures vanished beneath the disciplined boots of Rome. From the deserts of North Africa to the forests of Gaul, the empire expanded with terrifying certainty. But far to the north, beyond the known edge of the Roman world, there existed a land that refused to bow. A cold, mist-covered wilderness where mountains pierced the clouds, forests swallowed entire armies, and the very ground seemed determined to destroy anyone who dared to conquer it. The Romans called this place Caledonia, and it would become the one land the empire could never truly dominate. From its earliest days, Rome never saw war as merely a way to survive. War was prestige, war was power, and war was destiny. To the Romans, conquering new lands meant bringing order to what they believed was a chaotic world. Every victory expanded not only the borders of the empire, but also the belief that Rome was meant to rule. Under commanders like Julius Caesar, the tribes of Gaul were defeated and absorbed into the Roman system. Later, under the rule of Augustus, Egypt became a Roman province and Hispania was fully secured. Even powerful enemies such as the Parthians were contained within stable borders. Eventually, the Roman gaze turned toward the misty island of Britain. In the year 43 AD, Emperor Claudius launched a full invasion. The Roman legions arrived with overwhelming force, supported by diplomacy and alliances with local leaders. Southern tribes quickly realized resistance would only bring destruction. Within a few decades, southern Britain began to look increasingly Roman. Roads stretched across the countryside. Bathhouses, markets and amphitheaters appeared where tribal settlements once stood. Roman culture slowly reshaped the landscape, and it seemed like another inevitable success for the empire. But beyond the northern hills lay a region that would challenge everything Rome believed about conquest. To Roman commanders, the northern territory appeared to be nothing more than a rugged wilderness inhabited by tribal societies without cities or centralized governments. The governor of Britain, Gnaeus Julius Agricola, began pushing Roman forces northward. His campaigns were later described by the historian Tacitus, who portrayed the northern tribes as fierce but primitive. Rome believed that time and force would eventually bring them under control. Yet the Romans misunderstood the nature of the land they were entering. Caledonia was unlike any battlefield they had faced before. Mountains rose like natural fortresses, cutting the landscape into narrow valleys and steep ridges. Dense forests swallowed light and confused travelers. Treacherous swamps trapped carts and horses in thick mud. Rain fell endlessly across the landscape. Armor rusted, supplies rotted, and diseases spread through Roman camps. Legionnaires who had survived brutal wars across Europe began to fall sick with dysentery and lung infections. The environment itself slowly drained the strength of the Roman army. Roman warfare relied on order and discipline. Their strategies depended on carefully organized marches, secure supply lines, and reliable roads. But in Caledonia, none of these advantages worked. Maps became unreliable, roads collapsed in the mud, and entire patrols disappeared into the forests. Then there were the warriors themselves. The Romans called them the Picts, meaning the painted ones. Their bodies were marked with blue symbols created using local plants, giving them a mysterious appearance in the fog-covered hills. But the true strength of these northern tribes was their way of life. They had no single king, no capital city, and no central authority. Instead, dozens of independent tribes lived scattered across the mountains and forests. Destroying one tribe meant nothing, because another would rise somewhere else. The Picts refused to fight Rome in the traditional way. Instead of meeting the legions in open battle, they relied on ambushes and sudden attacks. Roman patrols moving through narrow valleys could suddenly be struck by spears or arrows emerging from the mist. Roman soldiers carried heavy shields, armor, and equipment designed for organized battlefield combat. The Picts traveled lightly and moved quickly across terrain that the Romans struggled to navigate. They attacked suddenly and disappeared into the forests before Roman formations could respond. Even when the Romans claimed victory in battles described by Tacitus, the results were meaningless. There were no cities to capture, and no leaders to force into surrender. The enemy simply vanished into the wilderness and returned later to strike again. Frustrated by this resistance, Rome turned to tactics that had worked elsewhere. Crops were burned, villages destroyed, and hostages taken in an attempt to break the will of the population. This brutal strategy had forced many societies across the empire into submission. But in Caledonia, it failed. The northern tribes lived in small, scattered communities that could quickly abandon their settlements. They relied on hunting, fishing, and gathering rather than centralized agriculture. When danger approached, they simply disappeared into the landscape. Eventually, the empire made a decision that symbolized a major shift in Roman strategy. Instead of pushing endlessly northward, Rome would define a permanent boundary. In 122 AD, Emperor Hadrian ordered the construction of a massive defensive barrier. That barrier became known as Hadrian's Wall. Stretching across northern Britain, it marked the limit of Roman expansion. It was not simply a military structure, but a statement that Rome would no longer attempt to conquer everything beyond it. Nearly a century later, one emperor attempted to challenge that limit. Septimius Severus launched a massive campaign into the northern territories with tens of thousands of soldiers. The invasion was brutal. Villages were burned, forests cleared, and entire regions devastated as Roman forces advanced deeper into hostile territory. Yet once again, the land and its people refused to submit. Disease spread among the Roman troops. Supplies struggled to reach the advancing army. The Picts continued to strike from hidden positions, refusing to fight on Roman terms. In the year 211 AD, Severus died in the city of Eboracum before the campaign could achieve its goal. After his death, Roman forces withdrew and the dream of conquering the north faded forever. In the end, Caledonia became more than a territory outside the Roman map. It became a symbol of the limits of imperial power. Rome had conquered kingdoms, defeated powerful armies, and ruled millions of people across continents. Yet in the rugged northern lands of what is now Scotland, the empire discovered something it could not defeat: a land and a people who simply refused to be conquered. And that leaves us with a fascinating question. Could Rome have conquered Caledonia if it had continued trying? Or was the resistance of the land and its people always destined to stop the greatest empire of the ancient world? Let me know what you think.